Welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamey Ice, musician turned entrepreneur and co-founder of 6th Ave Homes and 6th Ave Storytelling. Over the past 10 years, I have launched multiple successful businesses and have become obsessed with all things entrepreneurship and marketing. I've been on a personal quest to unpack what it takes to make and grow a great brand. One thing that I've discovered is that stories are powerful and that storytelling has the power to set a brand apart. Join me as I dive into the stories of the heavy-hitting leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and business owners in our community to hear their biggest wins, greatest losses, and their best business secrets. There's a story behind every great brand. Welcome to Stories with Soul. Stories with Soul is brought to you by my company, 6th Ave Storytelling. In 2020, we launched a marketing company on a mission to encourage entrepreneurship and make starting and growing a small business easier than ever before. Since then, we have helped hundreds of small businesses and entrepreneurs grow their brands by giving them the tools, resources, strategy, and support they need to craft and share their stories. If you are thinking about launching and growing your own brand, schedule a meetup with me today. I would love to talk to you. Head over to 6thAveStorytelling.com and let me show you how the storytelling approach can transform your marketing strategy. All right, guys, welcome to Stories with Soul. I am really excited about today's guest. We have you're my second couple.
Come on.
Family duo of entrepreneurs. It's Brad and Jennie Neathery. So I'm going to read your bio real quick, as I told you I would. So Brad is a passion brand builder. We're going to have to dive into what passion brand building means. Creative strategist, man. I'm not kicking this off at a good start.
You're doing great. It's going to get better from here.
It's going to get better. An accidental entrepreneur who turned a passion for storytelling into a growth hacking methodology that he has leveraged to position and build numerous brands across various industries, including Oak and Eden Whiskey, which we have here on the table, and Modern Huntsman, which you sold in 2021. Oak and Eden is headquartered in Southlake, but has a brick-and-mortar tasting room in Bridgeport, Texas, and you're opening one in Clear Fork here in Fort Worth. I'm excited about that. They're in 10,000 retailers. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah.
In 40 states. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. And plans on expanding even further. You also were the founder of the Right Brain Factory, a creative agency. You're also one of the co-founders of Taste JOJO, a cookie dough whiskey.
That's it.
Which is also right here on the table.
So good.
That's
I'm excited about
the
that.
newest venture.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jennie is a stay-at-home mom turned creative entrepreneur. So again, we got the husband-wife entrepreneur duo, known to many as the Little Bird. While seeking a creative outlet after having her second child, she stumbled upon the formation of Handmade Sign Studio, specializing in handcrafting the wooden farmhouse signs that are now in almost every suburban home. Totally true. What began as a platform to channel her energy into creating something outside of her day-to-day job as a stay-at-home mom suddenly exploded overnight, as did her social media following. She now has over 177,000 followers on Instagram. Mm-hmm. That's like a large city.
It is.
That's a lot.
Well, when you put it like that.
That's a lot. In 2019, she and Brad began building their first custom home, and her social media growth began to skyrocket as she brought her followers along the building journey, as well as her eye for interior decorating. You have a fantastic eye for that. I'm a little biased, but I'm a big fan.
Takes one to know one.
And you're the founder of Stock and Seed, which is a natural light home photography studio in Argyle, Texas. Y'all have been married for 11 years.
We have.
Right? I love it.
I know. I had to think of that.
You got to do the
second.
math. They have a 9-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. They live in Argyle on a small homestead with donkeys, chickens, and a dog.
It's life.
Yeah.
So multiple donkeys.
Oh, yes.
We actually just had a baby donkey.
How many donkeys do you have?
It sounds like a lot. We have 3. We have 3 now.
What
I guess
do you
it's
do
more
with
like
them?
2.5 because baby's a baby.
You just let them be.
Yeah, they just.
They don't need
Do
much.
the kids play with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty docile.
I
Yeah.
love it. Okay. Guys, well, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Jamey.
Thanks for letting me read all of that and
you
butcher
bet.
the first part. Okay, so I want to start out. I have a lot of questions to ask. I'm really excited to talk about branding and marketing because that's I geek out on that, and you guys are like wizards at that.
That's all we know.
Yeah. So, but give me the backstory. So take me back to before 11 years ago. You know, give me a little bit of like childhood. I grew up here. I did this. We got married. Take us on your journey.
Ooh, it's a fun one.
It's a good journey. For me personally, I was 13 years old my best friend in middle school gives me a call. And he says, hey, you want to make some money this summer? And I was like, yeah. He goes, great. Meet me in my neighborhood. So my mom drives me over to
where are you from?
in Coppell.
Okay. You're just up the road.
Just up the road.
Okay.
So we drive over to his neighborhood. Mom drops me off. And he's got this little box with him. And in the box is these like metal stencils with numbers in them. He's got a can of spray paint. And he's like, we're going to make more money this summer than you ever knew was possible. I was
Those were his exact words.
Yeah.
As a 13-year-old.
I like this friend.
And I'm like, all right, what are we doing? And he goes, we're going to spray paint the numbers, the house numbers on the sides of curbs.
Uh-huh.
I was driving around and I saw that there's so many of these house numbers that are like faded or people don't have them. We're going to charge $10 a piece. So we're just going to go knock doors and spray paint these house numbers on curbs. So I'm like, awesome, let's do it.
Uh-huh.
So 13-year-olds, we just go knock doors. And I'm telling you, it was like every house we knocked, they said yes. And so
And were you the talker or was he the talker?
We
Like
both
who sold it?
We're, it's funny because, now he actually has his own amazing entrepreneurial story in the tech world, but we're very similar, in kind of our personalities.
So that was your intro into.
That was my intro.
Into
so
I'm
we
making
made a
money
lot of money
hustling.
that summer, and it was like, okay, like I know guys that are 16 working at Chili's that don't make this kind of money. And, their whole year, like we made this in the summer.
Yeah.
Let's do it again next summer. And so the next summer we started getting into like buying clocks from Walmart and ripping the faces out of these little plastic clocks and replacing them with custom designed like collegiate logos, having no idea there was such thing as trademarking and copyright infringement. And so we started selling these on eBay. And then we had the University of Baylor send us a cease and desist
No
to my
way.
friend's parents' house.
That's fantastic.
And so his dad comes into our room into his room. He's like, guys, you can't do this. What are you doing?
Were you just like buying stickers? Like
We're like on Photoshop designing. Like we had this template made. We're like cutting them out of paper and then placing them in these clocks. We're buying for $2 a piece at Walmart. We're selling them for $15 on eBay.
Brad, I love it.
I mean, it's just like
I love it.
enterprising young dudes. And so anyways, he had to send a letter back to Baylor apologizing, but informing them that it's his 14-year-old son and his friend. And so they ended up calling his dad and were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They can't do this, but
We're going to give you a scholarship to the business school.
Yeah, right.
And so anyways,
Missed
it was
opportunity.
just that encouragement. Well, every summer from then on out, we did everything from graphic design to screen printing. We bought a 4-head screen printing press, an 8-head press the next year. We got into doing consulting by the time we were 17, like having no idea, no business being able to be
Wait,
this.
who were you? Who were you consulting?
It was like churches and schools and little
Wait,
startups.
pitch me on that.
my
What
gosh,
are
we
you
had-
consulting on?
It was so funny. So, for instance, we had so we had this screen printing press, right? And so we got an 8-head press. By the time we're 17, we're producing thousands of shirts for like school districts and small businesses. And we're also working on design, right? So we've learned Photoshop at a young age. We understand apparel at some degree. And a lot of these school districts and small businesses, like they just need help to understand how to, design a T-shirt or to help their branding improve a little bit. And so they're calling us thinking we're an agency.
Okay.
We're 2 17-year-olds. And so we're like informing them on, hey, if you want to build a stronger brand, here's our recommendations. We'll go ahead and produce this for you. And it's basic design stuff. Well, the the Young Life in Coppell Irving Valley Ranch gave us a call and they were like, hey, you did a project for one of our other campuses. We want you to do a project for us. And we want to do some custom branding. We want to do screen printing. And there was something else that they wanted. But we want you to come meet in our offices. And we were like, okay.
Because they don't know you're 17.
No idea.
That you could be a Young Life kid.
Yes, that we were Young Life kids.
Yeah.
And did you have like a company name and stuff?
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by the Fort Worth Business Press. As a Fort Worth entrepreneur and small business owner, the Business Press is my favorite source for news and updates about the entrepreneurial community in and around Fort Worth. I read their email newsletter literally every day. It's always full of insights and stories that really matter. Are you ready to be more connected? Sign up for their free newsletter at fortworthbusinesspress.com. But if you're like me and the newsletter just isn't enough, you can become an insider. With the code STORYTELLING10, all one word, you'll get a discount on the insider membership. Insiders receive exclusive access to special content, 24 issues of the Business Press delivered to your door each year, and discounts on event registrations and more. Join me and the Fort Worth Business Press in staying up to date on the people, companies, and issues that matter most to Fort Worth.
The company name for the screen printing was Mercy Print. And then we had also an apparel brand that we called Cairo Clothing.
Okay.
And so
Brad, this is incredible.
It was so fun. It was so fun.
love
And it was things that we just thought was common. Like we thought every kid's doing.
Did you
it.
did you read like books on
I hate
that?
reading. I hate reading. I'm like starting to learn the value of it.
And did you know what you were doing, or you just like we're really good at pitching salesmen?
We're just talking to people. It's amazing when you just open a conversation.
And did your parents were your parents that way?
My dad's a small business owner, so
Okay.
he owns a small boutique electrical repair shop in Highland Park. So I mean, he gets to work with the cream of the crop, celebrities and all the wealthy folk, and so he's learned how to have a small business with etiquette, and so he trained me on social etiquette.
Okay. So situational awareness.
Yes.
Emotional
100%.
intelligence. Like literally what you just described is my dream for my kids.
Yes.
Like I want that, because that's like you can't buy that kind of education.
Yeah.
And that sort of like the other day my daughter came and she was like, I want to set up a marshmallow stand outside.
Like, please
And I was
bring
like,
it.
all right, that's
Let's
really
go.
weird. Set a bowl of marshmallows. And people would walk by.
That's awesome.
And she was like, "You want to buy a marshmallow?" And they're like, "No, but I'll give you money." But anyways, I was very proud. But like literally that, I'm like, I like
It is.
if you could teach, teenagers, entrepreneur, like how to start a business, how to make money, how to think outside the box, how to pitch something and sell yourself, and be confident and price it. Like,
Yes. And I mean,
We've
that's
been having conversations about that, like somehow trying to bring that into our kids' school. Like if we had a life skills class and you came and taught a section on entrepreneurship, I just feel like all schools need that these days because kids just have no idea that entrepreneurship is a legitimate thing that you should pursue if it's in your heart.
Yeah, I didn't even know what that word was or what it meant.
No, me either.
the French do it.
French do it.
Entrepreneurship.
That's pretty good.
Is that true?
I have no idea.
No.
Fact check that.
That sounds right. Yeah. So we had.
So as a kid, you were this hustling high school
Yes.
kid, selling and consulting and printing and doing all that.
And I went to a great college, Abilene Christian University.
Okay, and you
Met
so you
her there.
went to and what did you study in college?
Marketing.
Marketing. Okay.
But you know what college did? Is it talked me out of entrepreneurship. It talked me into the safe life, the American dream, the get the job, retire quick. Work as hard as you can, grind in your 20s, hustle in your 30s, retire in your 40s kind of thing. And it's like there was an appeal to that as a young kid, and I'd forgotten the sweet life of entrepreneurship.
Sweet life.
I had it's so funny because you
Sometimes it's sweet. It's a bittersweet life.
it is bittersweet, but it's
fun.
Yeah.
it's the thing that if it's I've always said if you're failing at entrepreneurship, or if it's hard, I shouldn't say failing, if it's hard and it's challenging, you have the ability and the opportunity to correct it, or to
Control your own destiny to some degree.
right, and to choose, how you're going to maneuver in it. If it's for somebody else, it's amazing how many people work harder than the founder and get little reward out of it and don't get the ability to guide it. And so it's amazing. It's so great that we have people who are great workers, and there's a need for that.
Yeah, and supporters and helpers.
Yes, but there are more people that have the gift of building who have been stifled by the fear of failure. And so it's amazing when you're a kid, you're not worried about if you have bread on the table.
Yeah, you got your parent. There's food in the pantry
Yes,
that you didn't buy.
it's amazing.
That's a good point. You have the safety net.
You have the safety net.
Yeah.
If you take fear out of the equation, and as a kid, you don't like fear is not even a part of the equation. So if you take fear out of the equation, and you only have the opportunity, then all you're left with is the ability to perform. And so it's something that we've instilled and wanted to teach into our kids and the next generation. Is first off, we want to set them up for financial success. There's a generational wealth component to I think a call that we have generationally over our children. We need to be able to set them up so that they have the opportunity to build. And then second, to be able to train them, teach them. But I think it's just so much less of like of an oral vocal training. It's so much more of it like, get out there, just go paint curbs, just go knock on doors and hear no.
Of fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
When our son was 7, we got him a handful of chickens, and they got to laying age, and so they're laying all these eggs, and we have like an abundance of eggs,
Mm-hmm.
And so we're sitting there looking at our fridge, and it's got 8, 9
So many
cartons of dozens of eggs. And so I told our son, we're like, hey, you want to make some money? He was like, yeah. Like, go knock on doors around the neighborhood and just sell these eggs and just see what happens. And so you imagine like a 7-year-old boy knocking on a door with a little like sheepish look on his face. And nobody says no. They're like, I don't eat eggs, but yeah, I'll take a carton.
We're like, yeah, here's $5. Like nobody turns a kid down.
And, it was a short-lived little venture for him, but he got to see no isn't as scary as you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Being rejected on a sale isn't as scary as you think it is. It's the open door to an opportunity. Like it's when you can get past the no's. This is one of the greatest moments of my early career was in college. I got to knock doors and sell pest control in Colorado. And first off, there's no bugs in Colorado. So like nobody has a need for this, but it was awesome. I thrived. But the greatest thing I learned was, I got probably 30 no's for one yes. And I got to the place where I almost craved the next no because I knew it got me one step closer to the yes. And so it was this moment where I got to realize I really enjoy the no, because I'm learning.
But that's a mind shift.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you have to have done it.
Are you like telling yourself that? Because I'm sure there was also some like, oh man.
Yeah, you beat yourself up on it,
Yeah.
of course. Yes,
Yeah.
but it's like it's learning anything.
Yeah. The
you
no
beat
got you one
yourself
step
up.
closer to the yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You beat yourself up, and you realize you look back and go, "Oh my gosh, thank you. I actually needed that." You're grateful for it later.
Yeah.
Not now,
Yeah.
but later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you're dropping some bombs. This is good.
Come on.
But the idea of fear out of the equation, I honestly think that's probably one of the keys to my success.
Yeah.
Was very early on, and I know y'all are people of faith, but like my faith for me, I was like, I can't mess up.
Yeah.
I'm like, God loves me. He's for me. I know what the end is. I'm like, I can kind of do whatever I want because there's no failure. It's like having a lotto ticket in my pocket.
That's right.
It's like, I know the end is good,
Yeah.
but it removed that fear. And we all have moments of fear. Like there's moments of like self-doubt.
Yeah.
You have that, but if you can, whether speak it to yourself, but just that removal of fear, removal of no, removal of giving it your all and messed up and like it doesn't matter. Like if you can insulate yourself from the fear holds people back. So,
Yes.
so man, couldn't agree more. That's a fantastic
100%.
word.
Yeah.
Okay, Jenny. So before you're about to converge on college
On our stories here.
Yeah.
college meeting.
Yeah.
So to give me a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I grew up in an Air Force family, so we traveled around a lot in my younger years. I'm one of 4. I have 3 older brothers. They were always super tough on me growing up. So,
So you had this kind of rough and tumble.
Oh yeah. I was telling a friend the other day, I was like, I was such a tomboy growing up, and then I was like, oh yeah, it's because my family considered me to be the 4th brother. But no, it was great. We ended up moving to Nebraska when I was in 1st grade. And I ended up going all the way through 1st grade through high school there. We didn't move again, which was really great for me. My brothers moved around a ton. So that was a hard transition for them. But I got lucky, got to have stability, and my outlet growing up was sports. So pretty much played every sport under the sun. I think it was by the time I was in middle school, I decided volleyball was my thing. And so started playing volleyball. I did not have a job growing up because most of my time was spent in the gym and going to games
Practices
and all.
and
Yeah, I mean
games
that's a full-time job that, well, I guess kids in college get paid for it now, but was not that way
Not
for us
then.
back then. So yeah, I grew up with a family that my dad was in the military for 26 years before he retired, doing various jobs in that. But we weren't entrepreneurial or anything. My mom stayed home. She was awesome to raise all of us and keep us all somewhat in line all the time. And so then I got recruited to play volleyball at Abilene Christian down here in Texas. My thought process was, I love Nebraska, but I want to go see the world a little bit more.
I want to go see Abilene.
And, growing up in Nebraska, Abilene seemed like a big town.
I love it. That's a big move, though. That's a big
When
move.
we met, she was like, okay, I'm going to stay in Texas forever. I was like,
Based
you've only
off of
been in
Abilene.
I love
I
it.
was like, okay, we got to go see Fort Worth. Like, we have to see some places.
Yeah. I just remember I came down on my recruiting trip and they were bringing me into the campus center or something like that. And a guy opened the door and held it open for me. And I made this awkward Midwestern, you go, yeah, me, I didn't know what to do because they just don't do that up there. And he was like, no, you go ahead. I was like, I called my mom, oh my gosh, somebody held the door open for me. They're so nice here.
He's like, he wanted to kill you.
No.
Surely.
No. So anyways, came down.
And did you play all in college?
Yeah, I played all 4 years. My senior year was best season. Ended up first team academic All-American, honorable mention All-American on the athletic side. And our team made it to regionals, almost knocked off the top team. We lost in 5. That was too bad, but it was fantastic. And I just have the best memories of it, and actually just had an alumni weekend back there with my teammates. So I'm a little bruised because we were playing.
Did you play?
We were playing, and I am a little out of practice on that. So
one thing I love about college athletes is they're so disciplined. So I was honestly had a conversation this weekend with one of my good friends about why you should always try to hire ex-college athletes.
Yeah.
Because they're they're driven, they know what coaching looks like, they know how to coach people up.
Time management.
Yeah. Some of my two of my best employees I've ever had have been even Kayla, who was just she played soccer at Tech.
Oh, wow.
And anyways,
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of trying to hire college athletes because they know, because that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
When you're going to school full time and you're playing full time and you're practicing all that.
And then throw in a boyfriend. And it was
Boyfriend.
3 full-time
Need a lot
jobs.
of help.
Yeah. So we met 2 months into my freshman year. He's a year older. And I always say he stalked the volleyball team, but
I showed up to one game.
that might not be the whole truth.
It was really cool when we met. It's funny. I mean, just in my spirit, I just heard this word. This is your wife. And it was just it was the first time I'd ever really heard, in my spirit, the voice of God. And so I called my mom. I'm like, you're never going to believe this. I know I'm going to sound crazy.
You're
but
what,
this
19?
is what I heard. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's like I pursued her without fear. It was just like, this is just what's going to happen. We're just going to get married. And so I do what I did.
Did you tell her that?
No.
No.
He says he pursued me without fear, but he actually was very afraid
I was afraid of her.
Okay.
Not afraid of not being married to her, but
Yeah.
afraid of her. She's just an intense girl.
Yeah, well.
But it's something that we've talked to our kids about now. It's not something I was taught, but something I learned in that season was to pursue her for marriage and date her along the way. And something I didn't do. I dated girls, in high school and college, not pursuing them for marriage. But as soon as I just had this word that she was going to be my wife, it was like I'm pursuing her for marriage. And so it just made dating fun. You know, I mean,
Well, we had a
having
period too of just being friends. We had a big group of college friends that we all just kind of ran around with, and I know he had just gotten out of a relationship, and so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I don't want to be, rebound or anything like that. So we just started off as friends, and quickly just like could not be out of each other's presence. And I was like, okay, I think maybe we should start dating.
And so were you intense? Like that was a word you just like.
She's intense. She's an intense person. She's passionate, especially with volleyball. Yeah. I mean, she was the lead of the team. You know, I mean,
you were the lead of the team.
She's the authority. She's the energy. So she like.
Do you have a lot of drive?
Yeah. I mean, especially volleyball was my world. I'd done it my whole life, and so I remember my freshman year, I was a starter, and one of the upperclassmen, like I'd just come into practice and I'd be bringing the intensity, like I'm talking all the time, I'm yelling, I'm just out there. And after practice one day, she came up to me and she was like, "Jennie, you're being a little bit too intense, and we really need you to like tone it down." And I was really offended. I was like, "Are you serious? Like, what?
You need to be more intense."
Yes, that was my reaction. So I go to the coach's office and I'm like, "Okay, coach, she just told me this. I want to submit it to you because you're the authority, And she was like, "No, we love your intensity. Please keep bringing it. In fact, at the next practice, I don't want you to say anything. You're going to be quiet the entire practice, and let's see how it goes." And I was like, challenge accepted. And so the next practice, I didn't say anything at all, and we had a terrible practice. And coach was like, "Okay, guys, listen, we need this level of intensity, and this is what helps our team perform better. And in fact, like all of us need to step it up in this department." But it just was kind of a fun learning moment of like, okay, maybe I can channel this better so that, it's not, distracting from the team or whatnot. But like God's made me to be an encourager. And sometimes in that I can be very intense with that encouragement, exhortation over people. But it's just who God's made me to be.
Yeah.
And
I love that you were self-aware of that and confident.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't always that way, having that conversation was just kind of like, oh man, am I doing something wrong? I think when you're a college kid, you do have that fear of man, fear of failure aspect. And so as I've been able to be out, 12 years, however long it's been, God's been able to reshape that and show me who I am, who he's made me to be. And then now I get to walk in that and have his joy and bring that with me in the intense encouragement that I'll bring places.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I was literally just having a conversation with my wife because she is intense.
Yeah.
She is like, has a goal. She chases after it. She is, and she's like, anyway, sometimes people push back.
Yeah.
And people are like, you're too intense.
Yeah.
I feel like they say that less with guys. I feel like we can get like, there's just a stigma around women being really, really driven.
Yeah, for sure.
And pushing. And I was like, that's who you are. That's your superpower. That's why your organization is where it's at. Like you don't shy away from that. You need to know when you're like beating people over the head with it. There's,
right.
There's a self-awareness of, but I think embracing it as like a gift. And everyone has different gifts. Like my assumption is part of your gift is the ability to speak and communicate. Like just sitting here, I'm like, you are a master at selling and communicating and pitching.
Yeah.
But having like a vision and a drive and the discipline to like push, to accomplish something and then to motivate other people, like that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's been cool. That's been probably her most attacked area has been just the area of her compassion and her drive and her pushing. And it's been the area that I've just gotten to see her like conquer and come alive in. So it's been fun. It's a really neat area.
Love it. I love it. Okay, so y'all started dating, got married eventually.
Yep.
And you Brad, you said you went to school for marketing and you played it safe.
Played it safe.
Meaning you went and you worked for
a
other
company. I did that for way longer than I really, looking back, I think I worked there for about 4.5 some odd years. And
Are you a small business owner or an entrepreneur? Do you do marketing for a small business? If so, I have something that I want to give you, and it's totally for free. We've put together a free resource at 6fstorytelling.com/download, and it's the secrets, it's the tips, it's the tricks, it's the tools of the trade. It's literally everything we do at 6F Storytelling to help small businesses grow. Go download it today at 6fstorytelling.com/download.
Well, getting married right out of college, they're, going through college made him believe like, okay, I'm getting married. I need to have something stable for my family. And so it just made sense to hop right into this job, right into this role.
We also, one of the things I was taught both in school and growing up was, to buy assets, at a young age, buy assets, home, something that's going to increase in value, buy into these things that are going to help build you for the future. And so we bought a home. I mean, it was like, 6 months into my career. We were fortunate enough to be able to have the opportunity to put a little bit of money down and buy a little 1979 Fox and Jacobs home. And so, we had the house, we had the cars, and, I bought into the fact that, you just got to have a stable job that's going to, stay around. You're going to have the job security and all those lies. And so I was there 4.5 years. I remember the first week that I worked at this company. It's not that it was a bad company. It was just what it was. I got my calculator out and counted how many days until 65 years old. How many days I'd have to work until I got to retire. And it just hit me in that moment. It took me 4.5 years after that to do something about it. But it hit me in that moment that this is not what I'm made to do. I didn't know what it was, though. So fast forward 4.5 years, talking to a buddy, and he tells me, hey, I've seen you kind of work with small businesses and realtors and people who call you, and they want you to help them build their brands. They don't know really who they are. And the way that you're able to help them communicate their not just themselves, but really understand what they have of value, that maybe is the intangible that they can't quite discern about themselves. I've seen you draw that out in people. So I want you to consider building an agency and doing this at a more professional level. I was like, bro, I know like 2 people in agencies, and I don't even know what that means. He was like, well, pray about it. Talked to Jennie about it, who at the time she was super risk averse, military minded still, she was okay with my career. and so I got home, I told her about this. Hey babe, what do you think? And she was just like, okay, let's do this. I'm just seeing the way you come home from work and you're dying on the inside. This isn't you. And so she shared later how nervous she was about that decision, but she submitted to it, and it was just a beautiful open door for us to chase after something that we had no idea what it was. And so I started this little agency. And in fact, one of the things I did was similar to this. I started to go out and find these local businesses around Coppell. I just knocked on their doors, and I was like, hey, can I tell your story? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just want to bring in like a little camera crew, and I want to interview. I'm going to shoot a bunch of B-roll, take about a week or 2 to produce this. And then I'm going to put this onto a platform on YouTube and share it under a platform series called Roots. And everybody that I came to said yes. And so I had like all of Coppell, like the whole community of Coppell was like, had a Roots story.
Yeah.
And that was immediately, they all became clients. They're like, okay.
Yeah, did they become
All
clients?
of them, I think all but one.
Genius.
But it was because one of them was the Chamber of Commerce. Like I told one of the director of the chamber, I told her personal story. And so that was kind of my open door, and just had this immediate bank of clients. And then, of course, word of mouth grew. And
what were y'all doing?
It was specifically creative agency. So, I mean, it was everything from, I would start at a bare level of just, again, understanding who this person, people, company is, what they stand for, represent, their mission, vision, values. But then it was identifying gaps in the market. I mean, there's I'm sure you see this all the time. It's like, it's not necessarily about what you do that brings something new to the table. It's not your value differentiator. So much as it is, you've got to look at an industry and see where there's missing pieces.
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing new under the sun, then you've got to find the places between the sun and here where there are gaps and open doors. And so it was identifying those places with them. What are the opportunities? What are people asking for? Like, if you listen to the questions of consumers and you can hear what they're actually asking for, that nobody's solving that problem, go find that. Go solve that problem. And so giving them, first off, that ability to see that problem to be solved, but then second, to give them the confidence to go and solve it. You're the right person for the job, and here's why. And to be able to build a brand up around them that really, I always said, branding, it wasn't like putting on a mask. Villains wear masks to cover up the things that they want to hide, but heroes wear capes. And so I'm going to put on a cape to find the things about you that really are your superpowers, that maybe you thought were setbacks, but they really are the superpowers that make you great. Mm-hmm. And so at a very small business level, it was just me, and she was helping, and we had like maybe one contractor that was doing some design stuff, and it just grew, and it grew into mid-market businesses and VC-backed startups, and this whole realm. I never wanted to work with any sort of the bureaucratic organizations and get into that game. Mm-hmm. But I loved working with mid-market businesses and helping them understand really who they are, how can they strengthen themselves,
helping them articulate it, and then build a brand around
I remember even Four Corners Brewery was one of our clients, and they were in this transition of seeing that they had a massive open door to a Hispanic millennial community that was second generation Americans, and that Modelo was not their brand. Corona was not their brand. Like all of these, Mexican beer brands were not their brand, and they didn't really have a brand. And so they just saw this opportunity that, they had a Hispanic founder he was second generation. His passion was getting to kind of lean into that generation and pour into them. And so their next question was like, how do we go after this generation and this demographic in an authentic manner where it doesn't seem like we were once, Four Corners, but now we're like going after a new demo. Mm-hmm. And so just having the ability to kind of learn communication strategy, what's real, we're not going to create narratives and communication strategies that are just, sound good. We're going to find what's real in there and communicate that. And so there's just so many of those opportunities that kind of kept knocking on our door that I fell in love with getting to be this for other brands. But what was missing is I wanted to build a brand myself. Mm-hmm.
And you don't feel like you were doing that with the agency?
No, because you don't have ownership. You don't ultimately get to make a decision. You get to advise and inform. Yeah. And then,
you're kind of a consultant.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
In many ways.
And so,
and not getting to see the implementation of the brand going forward. It's like, here's the package, and then
you do it.
So you would say, okay, let me, get to know you, understand who you are, find your niche. Here's how you talk about it. What would you do with it then? It was like, would you say, here's your website, social media, photography? Like here's their strategy.
Yep.
Go.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. It's kind of like if you think about a what do they call it? An ironsmith. What are they? Blacksmith. A blacksmith would make weapons for the military, and then they would just deliver the weapons. And it's up to the military to learn how to train their troops, use them. And so we were kind of like the blacksmiths, right? So it was like my job was to create assets to then deliver. And yes, we would give them basic instruction, but I mean, we didn't have a strategy team. We didn't have a consulting advising team, anything like that. We didn't have marketing teams.
You were just the wizard at
we'll just give you the tools.
Yeah. And I'm really good at understanding and communicating for you. Okay, so you give them the tools. So you're restless.
I am.
Because
I don't get to do anything.
you're like I'm crafting these brands, but then I don't get to control their
I
destiny.
see so many designers get in this rut too. You know, designers like they have this passion for design, but it's not just for the sake of creating artwork. They want to do something with that artwork.
Yeah.
And so they do it for other people. They see the potential of it, and then it's not used to its fullest potential. And so it's like, oh, this wrestle in their soul of, they want to create something of their own. And so I had this yearning, but it wasn't as strong as like shutting down the agency and moving to something else. It was like,
And Jenny, you're working at the agency too.
Well, no, I was mostly, we'd had, like right before he stepped out to start the business, our son was 7 months old, I think. So in the trenches of that, and then 2.5.
But supporting.
Yeah, just being the come home, bounce ideas off, or hey, this client, I had this with them. I don't know, kind of
you
being like
handle
a
them.
yeah, no, kind of being, I mean, like kind of a HR for you a little bit, but just kind of being a sounding, being a sounding board.
And you hadn't started the sign.
Nope.
Sign.
Nope. I actually was working part-time at a chiropractic office just to have some like adult time outside of mom time. So kind of just
Just to get on.
just being out, interacting with people that I'm not changing diapers.
Yeah,
So,
I get that.
yeah, it was a really sweet season. But yeah, didn't have a creative itch in my soul yet. Just was really supporting his dream and watching, the fruits of that kind of impact our family from the beginning.
So, but started to get restless.
Starting to get restless.
I want to fight with the sword, not just make the
That's
sword.
right. That's right.
Carrying this analogy.
Yeah, totally.
And I want to be
Wow.
the one, like leading the army. It's like I want this.
We're two leaders. Yeah, we're two leaders.
Now my battle is no. I need to get this crown off my head, Lord. This is yours. Like let me. I gotta take this away. And so I was, just patiently waiting for an opportunity should it arrive. And it's funny because we had so many friends who, through those seasons were like, hey, I've got this idea. You want to join in with me? And we kind of like kick it around for a little bit. It's like, this isn't viable. Neither one of us know what we're doing. But I had a client who was, had this vision for starting a hunting retail store in Corsicana. And it was a really cool vision. It was kind of like, think REI meets Cabela's. And it's got like a coffee shop in it and a craft cocktail bar. And it's like a hangout spot.
For hunters.
Well, that's kind of the thing is
or outdoors.
The original vision was that it was for hunters and it wasn't. And his original vision was that it would be a place where like moms would come instead of coffee shops. They would come here and hang out. Well, I didn't grow up hunting, so I kind of had this perspective of hunters. And I think it's what most people who aren't hunters have. It's like camo, bullets, blood, death.
Ted Nugent.
Yes, 100%. It's the NRA, mindset. And so I wasn't PETA, but I certainly wasn't NRA either. And so he's telling me this pipe dream, and I was like, bro, listen, if you can get a 30-something-year-old mom to walk into the same store that Bubba with bloody camo is walking into, like you are living in some world I don't know about. And he goes, well, how do you connect the two? Because there's a connection between the two. And I said, listen, I mean, hunters are the way they are, and normal humans aren't that way. And he was like, hang on. Tell me some of your friends that hunt. I was like, listen, I'm more domestic than you. I have class. And so do my friends. We hunt at the grocery store. Like, we don't need to kill more animals. And he was like, all right, go ask some of your friends. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, go ask them how many of them hunt. I bet you almost all of them do. I was like, whatever. So I did. I just called, hey, weird question. You hunt? Almost all my friends hunted. I was like, what in the world?
You just didn't know.
Like, how come I've known you your whole life? How come I never knew this? Like it's just kind of a private piece of me.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual getaway. It's a connection with nature. And they never talked about killing. It was always about that journey.
Being outside.
Yeah, it's like they talk about everything up until the shoot, until they pulled the trigger or shot the arrow. And I'm like, okay, something's okay. All right, I get it. There's a perspective I'm missing here. And so I came back to him and I told him, yeah, there's a perspective I'm missing. But the people who don't hunt, who don't get it, who don't see that perspective, see it like I see it now. And so, if you want to accomplish this, you've got to change the minds of everybody who's like me and everybody who's like more on the PETA side. You've got to change their minds if you want this idea to exist. He goes, okay, change their minds. And I was like, okay, let's do it. It was just a big enough challenge that I was up for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea how, but I, after thinking about it, I went, okay, how do you change the minds of an entire culture? Through media. Media has the impact to do amazing things, or amazing things positively or negatively. And so if you want to change a culture, you change the media. You change the narrative. And what is the current narrative? I think we can all stereotype the narrative of hunting. We can all stereotype the narrative of vegetarianism, veganism. Mm-hmm. And neither one really probably have a good description on them, because I know vegans and vegetarians who are not the stereotype. I know hunters who are not the stereotype. Yeah. But if we could somehow separate those stereotypes, find common ground, and build a community around that common ground, and it won't be everybody, but if we could at least bridge a gap. And so that was me. That was the gap that I had to find and bridge. And so the only thing I knew how to do was to rewrite the narrative and tell a different story through visual media. But I knew that it wasn't supposed to be digital media. It was supposed to be, anchored in print. Because if I know anything about outdoorsmen, there's this legacy and heritage nature to outdoorsmen. They want tangible, something tactile, right? So there was just something in me that was like, we're going to create a book. I don't know what that looks like, but we're going to create a book that's going to be visual in its nature. It's going to be diplomatic in its tone. It's going to be beautiful and insightful, and it's going to be scientific, and it's also going to be historical. There's going to be archaic nature to it, yet also modernity in it. And it's going to be called Modern Huntsman. It's going to be this idea of what a hunter really thinks about himself or herself. What a fisherman, an angler actually feels about themselves is going to be visualized and represented in this book. But the only way to start a book is you got to start on digital. And so began a media platform through social media and leveraged digital advertising to kind of create this, again, visual persona that was kind of this, what I perceived to be the best of the communicable realm of the hunter and the fisherman. Mind you, I didn't have any experience in this world. And so part of me felt like a fraud, but part of me felt like the perfect person for the job.
Yeah, and you I mean, that's what you did with companies.
That's right.
You go in, and I hear your story, and then I help you re-articulate.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to be. You have there's so
helps to be outside a little bit.
You need a subject matter expert, and you also need somebody who can come in with fresh eyes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I had fresh eyes. I just didn't have a subject matter expert yet. And so with fresh eyes, created a media platform that I knew would be, it would be compelling in nature.
And when you say media platform, what do you mean by that?
Primarily Instagram. I mean, it was like that was the primary form of it. And then we started to do, videos, start to produce like short films, things like that.
And so to clarify, this is started with, I'm going to create this, coffee shop, gun store, hunting REI thing. Into I'm going to make a book. Into I'm going to now. No. Are you trying to make money with it, or you're like, this is just a challenge, and I am into this challenge of telling the story?
I just knew I wanted to build something.
Okay,
it just kind of caught fire, and so then you're just like, all right, what's the next thing?
So you just started like posting.
Just started posting. And
this version of the narrative that you felt like is missing in the world that bridges the gap.
Yeah. And so and finding the people,
but there wasn't a business.
No, it was
it was just a story you wanted to tell.
That's exactly right.
Okay,
and it's something that I knew that I could guide the narrative from vision to execution.
Okay, This is your first step in that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Since the high school
Yes,
days.
yes,
Okay.
100%. And so,
And pause real quick. So, as his wife, he doesn't hunt. Were you like, what are you doing? Or were you?
No, it just kind of was like he shared.
Imagine.
Yeah.
somehow
Honey,
felt
I
natural.
have this idea.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, it was weird that he was doing all this hunting stuff, but not actually hunting. And I'm like,
Okay.
we should probably go hunting if you're going to continue down this route at some point.
She's a master marksman, by the way. Homegirl
really?
has shot better than my army marksman cousin in a shooting competition.
Nah, I love it.
So I'm, again, still afraid of her.
Selfishly, I was like, I've never done it. I want to go out. Let's do it. Now you have some connections. No, but more so it was, when he gets passionate about something, you just want to join in on the journey.
Okay.
And so, we kind of just saw where it was going, and it was just, really kind of a passion project that was happening alongside Right Brain Factory. And it was just igniting his creativity in a way that hadn't been since he started the agency. And, I just saw him having so much fun with it. And so there wasn't really like a, hey, are you spending too much time on this? Kind of thing. It was just kind of like, oh, wow, yeah, this is really cool. And you can see the change starting to happen in the community. People just flocked to this Instagram account, and it grew so quickly. And you just realized how much of an impact it was having and changing the narrative and actually doing what, they set out to
It
do.
was doing what
Yeah.
I mean, you remember when Instagram was like nobody had 1 million followers? Nobody.
Yeah.
Like maybe celebrities, but nobody. And 100,000 followers was like, dang, and they were real people, and they really contributed to your whole narrative. And if you had 1,000 followers, you had 800 likes. It's like this was people really.
The algorithm was
it was wide
open.
open.
I
Those
miss
were the days.
Yeah,
And
I know.
so it was like big companies had 20,000 followers kind of thing.
So it was taken off.
It was taken off, and we
Because how many people follow it?
now
right
it's like 100 something.
Yeah.
But back then it went from like 1,000 followers to 40,000 in like 2
Yeah,
months.
So fast.
And
Wow.
but what's crazy is I was getting all of these DMs like, hey, I'm behind whatever you're doing. I don't even know what it is, but I'm behind it. Count me in. Like, I'll support with money. I'll support with my time. And so I just saw this movement happening. And that's like, people are like, they're like in this. They've kind of put a definition of what it is in their head. I'm like, help me. I don't even know what this is. I have this idea, but I don't even know fully what it is. But I did know that it was a passion brand. And, that's kind of what that.
Going back to our passion
Yes.
brand. Okay.
And so it was a brand that people didn't just consume; they participated in. They had a passion for it. Anytime that I build a brand, I want it to be something that people are the primary passion creators in it. It's not me who's passionate trying to communicate my passion. It's saying that we're creating some sort of a homogenous community here.
We're not saying buy this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
We're saying
Creating
this is
something. Whether you call it a movement or a community, whatever it is, if there's something in it that people are saying, I want to participate and contribute in some form or fashion. And so I had enough of this, and I one of the first people who reached out to me, his name's Chris Douglas, and he's just this prolific photographer in the outdoor, specifically Western world. So he was the creative director for Filson for a time. He was the creative director for
their stuff is
Stetson.
fantastic.
Yeah. But he he's the photographer for the Western world. Amazing artist, but he's also a businessman. And so he sends me this message. I know his name very well. And so I see this Chris Douglas photo in my inbox, and I open it up, and like my heart's racing that Chris has seen me. And he goes, I see what you're doing. Can we have a call? And I was like, great, because I don't see what I'm doing. So I want to hear what he thinks I'm doing. and agree with that.
Yeah.
So we get on this phone call, and he goes, you are reshaping the story of hunting. And I love it. I've been trying to do this my whole life, but it seems that nobody's cracked the code. You've cracked the code. And I was like, great. That sounds kind of like what I was thinking. And he goes, you're taking the best of, the artists and the photographers and the writers and scientists, taking all this stuff and you're just curating it into one platform. That's what we need. We need the best curator to curate what we actually stand for, believe, represent, in the right tone and the function and form of who we are. He goes, but you have to get this into print. I was like, I know, I understand. That's what I'm feeling too. But I don't know. What is this? It's not a magazine, it's not a book. What is it? And he goes, have you been following indie print publications? That this whole idea kind of coming from Europe. Like, never heard of it. He goes, have you heard of Kinfolk magazine and Serial magazine? Like, yeah, just, very loosely. They just came out into the States. And he goes, this is the future of print. It's going to be where you don't know if it's a coffee table book or if it's a magazine. It's not ad littered. In fact, it has ads all through it, but you never once know you're reading an ad. It's very native. It's very approachable. It's beautiful. It's not hardcover. It's softcover, but it's 8 by 10 or it's 9 by 12.
Where it looks beautiful.
It looks beautiful, and it's volumized. So, people stack them, and they're $30 a piece, but they're really catalogs more than anything else because they're ad littered. You just have no idea. And so he goes, I'm going to send you some books. So he sent me a few, those that I mentioned, as well as there was one that was done, just a really great storytelling collective quarterly. It did an amazing job at storytelling of cities all across the country that were kind of hidden gems. And immediately, as soon as I saw this, it was like, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to produce indie publications, And so we launched a Kickstarter campaign. I found a creative director who was the subject matter expert. His name's Tyler Sharp. And he became my creative director so I could run the company as best I knew how. Mind you, I'm not a great operator. I'm a really great brand builder, but I'm not a great operator. And so off we went with this Kickstarter campaign. We raised the most money at the time that a publication project had ever raised, and it was like $150,000, something like that on Kickstarter. Wow. Mind you, in the hunting world, And so we have this cash. We find about 12 contributors who go and they shoot these projects all across the world, and we create this print publication. And in the first, I think it was the first year, we had about 10,000 subscribers to our biannual print publication. So we've got the cash flow we need to be sustainable in our first year.
And were you still doing the agency?
Still doing the agency.
Okay, still doing the agency.
And it kind of all worked together. So actually our agency office, I partnered with Tyler, and so we turned an agency office into the Modern Huntsman HQ. And so my team would come work out of there, and he and I would work out of there. And it was just a cool thing. But again, we didn't have a great operator. And so we were two creatives, visionaries, passionate,
making this beautiful
oh my gosh,
thing.
it's amazing, but we have no idea how to run a company, do finances. We're like, oh my God, we have to pay taxes again. It happened again.
All of it was going to the magazine. He wasn't taking a paycheck at that time.
Yeah,
and
we were literally just cash flow in, cash flow out.
Yeah.
We were month to month, and along the way, in 2016, I get another phone call from my one of my former clients who he had sold a business. It's actually his 12th business that he'd run. Sold it, was consulting. He had hired my agency to do a project. He calls me back about 6 months later at the time that I'm launching Modern Huntsman. And he was like, hey, love what you did with our brand. Love what you're doing with Modern Huntsman. I want to sit down and chat about something else. So he pulls out this bottle of whiskey right here. And
this
was it? Yeah, was it actually
iterations
that?
long ago.
Okay.
It looked much different than that
Yeah.
did. And he pulls out this bottle of whiskey, and if you can't tell in the camera, it's got a piece of wood in the bottle, and that piece of wood, is obviously odd. And so he sits down this bottle of whiskey with a piece of wood in it. And he goes, I have an idea. And he told me this story about how his brother, when he sold his last company, his brother had sent him a mason jar of whiskey that he distilled in his basement. So think about the stereotype. He's the stereotypical home distiller, does everything in his basement. He's pure to the craft.
Super passionate.
Super passionate.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the necessity to buy a barrel because he's only distilling in 1 or 2 gallons at a time. So instead of aging his whiskey in the barrel, he's aging his whiskey in the bottle using barrel wood. And so he sends Joe this mason jar of whiskey with chunks of wood in it. So Joe opens his package and he calls his brother up. He lives in Minnesota. And he goes, hey, what is this? And his brother's so excited to tell him about this whiskey. He's like, no, I don't drink whiskey. What's the wood in it? and his brother's like deflated, He's like, oh, well, this is what home distillers do. We don't need a whole barrel. And for those that don't know, the wood of the barrel is what actually produces the flavor and the color of whiskey.
Yeah, because whiskey starts out
Clear
clear.
and almost flavorless. It's kind of like, think like Everclear. Like it's a very, almost flavorless product.
I didn't know that until I went to the Jack Daniel's distillery years and years ago, and I was like, it's clear?
Yes.
What? The wood is what makes it brown.
The wood is
and
the character.
Tastes the way it tastes.
Yes.
And so, so that totally makes sense. You just put a piece of wood in there, and it does
something.
thing.
It does something. We're not sure exactly what it does yet. And so he said, this is how home distillers do it. So Joe goes, okay, is it work? Not using a barrel, does it work? And he's like, kinda. You really should use a barrel. Because a barrel is it's almost like our lungs. It breathes with oxygen, humidity, barometric pressure, temperature change. It moves, and so the whiskey goes into the fibers of the barrel and expresses back into the barrel over and over years. And so there's this fluctuation of characteristics that are being developed because of the barrel. When you put the barrel in the bottle, it fully submerges. It's more like a tea bag where it releases flavor, absorbs whiskey, and it's done. It's inert at that point. It's like, so yeah, it kind of does a job, but it's not effective as a barrel is. So Joe sits there and he goes, okay, who sells it like this? And his brother laughed. He said, well, obviously nobody. And Joe goes, why obviously? He goes, well, Joe, that would be stupid. And he goes, the purist thinks it's stupid. The opportunist sees an opportunity. And if every home distiller does it like this, but nobody manufactures or markets it this way, maybe there's an opportunity. So he calls his patent attorney. Patent attorney looks at him kind of puzzled and says, nobody has done it this way. So let's apply some patents onto this technique of in-bottle something.
So before he even made it,
He went straight to his patent attorney. Right. Joe's an operator.
because this guy's been around.
He's been around.
Started business. He sees an opportunity and he's like, I know what to do with
So
it.
at the time he's in his early 50s. He's got some.
His name's Joe.
Yeah, he's got some age on me.
I need a Joe.
Everybody needs a Joe.
Every creative entrepreneur needs a Joe.
Yeah.
And it, not just somebody with the expertise, but somebody who shares your vision, your values, who aligns. We've been in business together for 6 years now. We were just talking about this yesterday. We've never once had more than, hey, I disagree with that. I want to talk it through. And that is the most precious quality to have in a partner. So Joe, who's operations minded, he's an amazing CEO, right? He's thinking about that kind of stuff in advance. He's very prudent in how he thinks. And so he goes and discovers, of course, aging whiskey in the bottle is not, first off, effective, nor is it a smart idea. You're just going to offend a lot of people by being that innovative or novel. You need to still adhere to some level of tradition and heritage in this industry. And so there's this other process after aging where some distillers will take their fully aged whiskey and they will put it into a second barrel after it's done aging. That second barrel is usually made of a different wood species, or it's aged another spirit like rum or Cabernet or beer. And all you're doing is you're putting it in the second barrel to add new flavors.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not aging, it's not tradition, it's not law, it's not religion. It's fun. It's a new addition. And so he sees this opportunity and goes, well, hang on. We shouldn't age the whiskey in the bottle, but what if we finished it? Double barrel finished it in the bottle. Instead of putting the whiskey in the second barrel, we put the second barrel in the bottle. And so he applied for this patent, 4 patents actually, under the confines of this technique called in-bottle finishing, all 4 of which we've been awarded. So he comes and he sets this bottle of whiskey down. He has this pro forma built out that is beautiful. He's got this business plan that I'm just like, it's amazing. It's so amazing. And he goes, I'm going to do this. I see an opportunity here in this industry. I'm going to do this. But I know how to get the product from concept to, completion in the product level. I know how to get distribution. I know how to do wholesale and manufacturing and build a workflow. But I don't know how to get consumers to want it. And I need you. And so I said, are you hiring my agency? Do you want me? And he goes, I want you. And so I sit there and I said, I'm going to pray on this. Being a Christian, first off, in the whiskey industry, I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing. And then second, it's a big step. And so I talked to my wife, we're going to pray on it. And so I went back and I had second kind of in my body voice revelation. I just heard this word, you are going to sanctify the spirits industry. You're going to bring it back. There's going to be a redemption on the spirits industry. So I told my wife, I told Jennie, and she was actually excited about this one. It just seemed, there was this
No
like
hesitation.
thrill of this is where you're supposed to be. And so I met with Joe again. We signed a paper napkin, and looked at the letterhead, and the company name above Oak and Eden. The company name was Sanctified Spirits, and the word sanctify means to make holy or redeem over time. And so I see this. It says Sanctified Spirits. I was like, I have a word that I'm going to be used to sanctify the spirits industry. He goes, guess what? I had that exact same word. And that's why the company name is Sanctified Spirits. Wow. And it was that moment that was like, okay, we're...
And what do you mean by that? Unpack that for me a little bit.
So when you think about the spirits industry, just like you think about hunters, there's a stereotype, there's a stigma. And it doesn't mean that everybody's that way.
Yeah.
It just means that's what's perceived at a macro level. And so most brands, they operate under the persona of what the expectation of the industry is, which is abuse, alcohol abuse. It's drunkenness. It's, taking advantage of somebody, using alcohol to take advantage of somebody else. It's using it to get a release, it
has the potential for harm.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's taking something natural to try and find a place supernatural. And on that, there's this undertone of, this is not holy. And the term holy being, it's just not bringing health and life and vitality to your body, your spirit, or your mind. And so the industry has almost accepted that alcohol is designed for abuse. That's its design. Well, it wasn't designed that way. It was originally designed by, monks and by the church and by creatives and people who were progressive, forward thinking, and they were under some sort of a revelation of creation. And so it was designed in good intent. And then over time, just like everything, we turn it bad. We take a good gift and we make it bad.
Food, you can do
absolutely
that
anything.
So many things.
Money. I mean, like every good gift that we have. It's amazing how when we talk about things that we struggle with, it was a good thing to start.
Yeah.
And then we struggle with it because we've made it an idol. We've turned it into something that is deeper into our identity. And so if we look at that and go, okay, alcohol was not designed to be harmful. It was designed as a good gift. But it's become a harmful substance at a macro level. It's as a stereotype, it has become that. We need to redeem that narrative. We need to bring back something holy or purposeful in it. And so what does that look like? It doesn't look like putting little crosses on the bottle. We're not creating a Christian whiskey. Like, we're not putting Bible verses on this thing. We are going to represent the character of a life being sanctified, not perfect, but being sanctified, being made holy. And so in our imagery and our brand, there's intentionality in how we communicate this brand. It's still fun, and it's exciting, and it's thrilling, and it's beautiful, but it's not designed with the optics of trying to get you drunk so you'll buy more of our product.
Yeah, big crazy party.
That's right.
It's about sitting around and having conversation.
That's right.
Connection.
That's right. It's about friendship, community, building, and it's not boring. It's not lifeless. It's actually, it's better. It's life. It's full of life. And so, so having this word of sanctifying the spirits industry, I knew that we're not going to change everything. It's not up to me. I'm not going to change everything, but I'm called into having a small part, to build a brand that would be sanctified in the spirits industry. And so off we went, signed this paper napkin agreement day one and made it more formal a few months later to create, kind of like Modern Huntsman, create what I thought was the best visual representation of a brand in this industry, and have it be passion at its root. Have it be something that people, it's funny how you see Yeti bumper stickers on people's car. They don't even own a Yeti. It's amazing how they built such a passion brand that, you want the name more than you want the product. And so I knew that that's what we had to create, was a brand that you want the name attached to you more than you want the product, and the product is a representation of that. So off we went building this brand. It's been 5 years. It was 5 years in April that we launched. And in our first 4 years, we haven't gotten the reports this year, but the first 4 years of launching, we were the fastest growing ultra premium whiskey brand in the country, and ultra premium is defined by a price point in this industry. And so we're the fastest growing brand at the mid-level price point in the country, second fastest growing brand period in the country. We're given distribution into 40 states in 5 short years, 10,000 retailers. I've gotten to experience things I literally never thought I'd get to experience in my life, and there has just been favor. And for people that know this term, there's oil on it, or there's just, it's amazing how we have kind of a weird startup story where it hasn't been hard grind, it's been easy, and that's not meant to discourage people.
I'm assuming it was hard work.
It's hard work.
Hard work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's challenges.
Yeah.
But you don't look back going, oh, man, yeah, no, okay, year one, dang, we thought we were going to lose our shorts, and we had this one deal, and an investor turned sour. We don't have that. There wasn't torment in it. It was hard and hard work, but it was, you look back and go, this is too easy. When people told us, people tried to, communicate, this was supposed to be really difficult. And it's like every door we knocked on opened, and there was just oil on it. And so now as we have, sitting in this position, we recognized a couple of things. One, that, we know how to build brands. I know how to build brands. That's all I know how to do. And I love it. Joe knows how to run companies, and it's all he knows how to do. And he's really good at it. And we built this amazing team where we've got about 40 people on our team now who are just the best of the best in the industry. We've got more of an agency model internally than we have a whiskey company. And so we've got more creatives and growth marketers and retail specialists and strategists than we do distillers and the everything that comes with being in the whiskey space. And so as we started to look at this going, we've got an amazing team. We've got something here. There's an intangible in us. And we've built a distribution network that, really rivals some of the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we limiting ourselves to one brand? We don't need to be sitting here only creating and distributing one brand. Let's just have our eyes open to building another brand and leveraging our current distribution to plug it into that distribution network. And so as time would have it, we had this kind of providential moment of somebody saying, hey, you guys should really consider getting into the flavored whiskey segment. There's something happening there. Screwball had just launched their peanut butter whiskey, and it was like blowing up. And there was this new brand called Howlerhead. They were doing banana whiskey. It was blowing up, and it's like, oh my gosh, what is this world of like sweet whiskeys that like vodka had its heyday, but whiskey is coming around. And so we just studied the market, loved it, found an opportunity to put a cookie dough whiskey into the market. So off we went with this brand that we called JOJO.
This is brand new, right?
It's like
how...
2 months old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love the branding of this.
It's so
well,
fun.
and the backstory with the cookie dough portion.
Yeah. So Joe, a business partner, when he was before getting into Oak and Eden, the last company that he sold was actually a manufacturer of baked goods, specifically, or raw goods, specifically cookie dough.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so it was kind of this like he had the cookie dough background.
Did you try some different ideas before you landed on cookie dough, or did it start out the gate with cookie dough?
Kind of started with cookie dough.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually had one of our sales guys way back in the day who told Joe, he's like, listen, you have this cookie dough background. You're now in whiskey. Why don't you make a cookie dough whiskey? And so he called me. He's like, listen to this stupid idea. And I was like, that is dumb. I hate it. And a few months later, we're like, hey, remember that one idea? What if that could be actually really good? And so we worked with a flavoring house and started producing some syrups and flavors that were all natural, whole food compliant. They're Circle K regulated, and
You're not putting cookie dough.
you're not putting cookie dough. Creating flavor that tastes like cookie dough and doing it in a way that we can actually use real sugar. We can actually use ingredients that.
This is a separate company. It's under
the Sanctified Spirits
under Sanctified Spirits,
company,
but it's not Oak and Eden. It's
right.
Not,
So
it's
it's
not Oak and Eden's
right.
flavored.
Yeah, there's no wood in that
totally
bottle.
different.
Yeah, there's no wood. So this is a new brand, your latest baby.
That's right.
So to speak.
That's
that
right.
You've launched, and now how do we build a following? We're gonna do
this all over again.
Okay.
We're gonna
Cool.
start
That's
from
so
scratch.
exciting.
Yes.
And did y'all take on investors in the beginning, or was it just?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've raised about $15 million
Wow.
over the past 5 years. We've got about 120 investors on our cap table, and I'm telling you, I've heard horror stories about investors, and we have been so generously blessed with our investor group that they are friends, they are passionate, they are advocates for us, and we've just had the best time with our investors. So the journey has been rewarding, all in.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jennie, catch us out. So I want to go back. I have a few questions about this, but I want to hear you. While he's doing
All of that.
Oak and Eden, you're building this other company, and then eventually this other brand.
Yeah, so where the Little Bird kind of got its start was I had my daughter in 2016, and we had just moved out to Argyle into a beautiful new neighborhood, and I had decided at that time to leave the part-time job, with 2 kids. I just felt like, okay, I got to be mom, and I don't know how that's really going to go with 2 now. So let's adjust to this routine and just kind of devote all the time there. And so moving into this new house, it was totally different than that 1979 house. And so we had sold pretty much all of our furniture from that house. And then we moved into this one with a bit of a blank slate. And we didn't have a huge budget at the time to redecorate and, buy all this stuff for this house. And it was kind of right at the time that a lot of women were starting to get into the crafting world. Pinterest was huge. And so I think for Christmas that year, our parents are like, what do you want? And I was like, well, I've seen this machine that like can cut things and do different craft stuff. And, now I just have all this time on my hands with 2 kids, which I did not, but somewhere in my brain, I thought I did. I was like, so yeah, that'd be really great. So they got that for us. And I think I was perusing Pinterest one day and saw, white sign lettering, it was probably a Bible verse somewhere. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I wonder how they made that. And so I'm also a researcher. So if I get my mind on something, I'm going to figure it out. And so I was like, you know what? Okay, they've got paint, they've got wood. I think they got to use some power tools in there. I think I can do that. I've never done that before, but why not try? In this motherhoodness, I was really just missing that thing of my own that I'd had, after we had Graham. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to just take some time during nap time and attempt.
Is it in the garage?
Yep.
Is there a shop?
Yep, just in our 2-car garage. And I think I borrowed tools from my dad. I don't know. I can't remember now.
Somebody more manly than me.
Yeah. Brad did not have the power tools. So yeah, I just went out there and just kind of like started trying to put this thing together. And I was so proud of that first sign. It was like, I made this. And I look back on it and it was terrible. I mean, I think I'd shot some nails through the front of it and then I kind of painted over that. But I was like, look, we have one piece of decoration for this house, And so I just, started doing that for a couple other little things around the house. And I think it was Graham's 3rd birthday. Yeah, it would have been his 3rd. Had all of our new neighborhood friends over, family, and they'd be like, oh, where'd you get that sign? I was like, oh, I actually made it. Like, what? No way. Can you make me something? And I'm like, sure. I'm really enjoying working with my hands.
You hand painted it?
At that time, yeah, I was, I think, roller painting the base, and then, I'd cut a stencil on my machine.
So you do like a stencil.
And then put the stencil on, paint over that, take the stencil off, pick all the things out, and then frame it. So I was starting to kind of get in the groove of doing that. And so I was in the middle of that first kind of commissioned piece for a friend, and he comes out and he's like, they're paying you to do this. And I was like, yeah, that's so cool. Could you believe it? And he's like, that should be a business, right? And I'm like, no, that's like your realm. You're the business builder. You do that. Like, I'm just having fun over here. Like, I don't have any concept of that. And he was like, well, let me build a brand. Let me build a website. Let me get stuff going. And I'm like, if you want to do that, you go for it. Cause I have no idea what any of that is. And it's like giving him a cookie, just like go.
You say I can? Yes. Let's do it.
Yeah. So he immediately just goes full force on it and builds this beautiful website.
My claim to fame is I taught her social media, and it wasn't but like a year later that I'm like, hey babe, I see what you did over there. Could you give me some tips on how you're doing that?
Oh my gosh. I remember the first post. So he's like, you need a social media to market this business. Like,
yeah.
You can get out in the local community and everything, but if you really want to grow it, like, let's do social media. And I'm over here like, I thought social media was just to post pictures of my kids to my high school friends. Like, that's all it is, right? He's like, no, there can be something more. And so I make my first post and I'm like, what's a hashtag? How do you do that? And very quickly it started in the local community, getting tons of clients there. Our neighborhood had like this huge grand opening event thing. And I set up a booth there, and it was really right at the beginning of the whole farmhouse sign phase. So really hit the market well on that one unintentionally. It just really was favor in it. And so kind of at the beginning, that was at the end of 2017. So at the beginning of 2018, he's like, hey, we kind of have this little social media thing going, but have you ever considered partnering with home decor influencers, sending them a sign, they take pictures of it in their home, tag you on Instagram, and that's kind of another side of marketing and getting yourself out there to a, larger community. And I was like, people do that? Like, how do I do that? And there's so much of the story that, none of this would have been possible if it weren't for him and his insight. And that's why we're so excited to get together on a few more things in the future and build together. But so I just started DMing these influencers on.
Hey, can I send you a sign?
Like, hey, I'd love to send you a sign to put in your home in exchange for, a couple pictures and a share. And shockingly, almost all of them were like, yeah, of course, please. And I think that was right in the phase of influencers weren't quite, what they are today, like really working with brands, getting paid to work with brands. And so I was just this little small shop and they were like, yeah, I would love to support, which was super encouraging. And so kind of had my first round go out with that. They started sharing and
so people started following
yes,
along.
people started, coming from all of these other influencers following my little sign shop and it just grew explosively. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that would even work. That's so cool. I just really needed content to share on my page. That was kind of my big motivation. And in that, my brother actually unexpectedly passed the fall of 2018. And I had literally just sent out everything and it was, this huge marketing push and I was about to be super busy with all the signs. And so there was a moment of, oh, gosh, I really should probably, shut the shop down and just, on the personal side, have our grieving moments and just kind of do that. But I felt like the Lord wanted me to keep going with it. And it ended up being a really cool process of working through my grief in the business. It was a lot, obviously, to do all at once, but I really believe sticking through it and just having that outlet to process that. If I'd shut it down, I don't think I'd still be doing it today. So it just was a really great outlet that started as creative time outside of mom, and now it's turned into this, okay, I'm creating with my hands, I'm connecting with the Lord, processing through everything that's just happened, and there's just a beautiful kind of redemption that came through that.
It was your sort of outlet, hobby, release.
Yeah, just, my kids are down and now I got to go, do work.
It's just you. Just you doing
me.
it.
Yeah. So at that point, gosh, I'm trying to think of how many signs a month I was probably doing. 100.
Way too many.
Way too many for myself. Yeah.
That's a
It
lot.
was, since it.
But you almost shut it
Almost
down.
shut it down, but that college athlete mentality in me too was like, no, like we've just started building. Like let's just go through.
I was telling somebody the other day, it was really sweet in that season how, her brother passes away and, there's just this necessary time to grieve. And I'd come home and I'd see her in the garage where she would work and, she'd just be on the floor weeping. And I'd come in and just give her a hug and how you doing today? And she's like, actually good, really good. Cause I've got time to grieve. I've got time to, work with my hands to build, to, I've got time to process this. I'm praying, I'm worshiping, I'm grieving, I'm all of it. And it's like, this is just the necessary thing for me to do.
Yeah.
And it was just a really sweet time to have, like, at the same time while she was busy, it never was consuming.
And there was too this side of part of the Instagram journey at that time was like stories had just come out. And so, the encouragement from the platform was, that's your place to connect with your audience, to build community. And so I went from, just kind of really sharing behind the scenes of what it looks like with the small business to, hey, here's my raw, authentic self. Like my brother just died, but I'm still doing all of this. And so I kind of invited everybody unintentionally on that journey with me. And I think that was really a building moment for the community because, people go through loss all the time. And so to see that real authentic connection, which is what we're all looking for from social media, I just remember that the community got me through a lot of it as well. So being able to share that with them, so many messages of encouragement and just helping process that grief in an authentic way. It just was, I will never forget the amount of people that reached out and prayed for us and helped get us through that season.
Wow.
It was transformational for sure.
Then it kind of catalyzed in 2019. We were living in this neighborhood. We just felt this strong urge to move to land. We live in Argyle. And so we were in a really cool little neighborhood, but we're passing by cattle on our way to our neighborhood and all these ranches and everything. And it's like there's just something in us that was like, we've got to be in land. Mm-hmm. And so we just start hunting for land. We find this one property. The first property we walked on, we just hated it. We just hated it. It was like, I don't know what it was. There was just something off about it that we just didn't like. And so we spent about 4 more months searching for land. And one day, Jenny was like, hey, let's go back to that first property. I'm like, no. And so we drive back over there and drive onto it, get out of the car, step on the property, and this wave of peace just hits both of us. And the third time I hear in my spirit, I heard, build my church here. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
No, we're looking to build a house.
And a couple of weeks later, I had kind of held on to that word, and I shared it with her. And she goes, I heard that word too. Mm-hmm. And it was just the wildest thing. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do with this, but we're just going to pray on it. So we prayed on this word. And then it was like, okay, Lord, if you want to build a church, you got to make it happen, because I don't know how to build a church. I don't want to build a church, but I'm going to do everything I can to not build a church. And then if you don't want this to happen, you stop me. Mm-hmm. And it was like every bit of the process of getting up to starting the build of a home was as easy as it could be. Mm-hmm. After that, it was really hard. But like at the point of no return, it was easy getting there.
Yeah.
And so then.
So in that, I'm growing the sign business, but I'm starting to integrate like, hey, we're looking for land, we're going to build. Here's the other part of our story, I always tried to be, just an open book, and here's my passions, and I'm going to share those with you. And I saw that it really, like, people just really connected with that. And so I gradually started sharing more of that home building process, and was still doing signs, but also just kind of dipping the toes in both sides. Mm-hmm. And so the whole build process, like he said, it was, once you got past that point of no return, it was just like obstacle after obstacle. Not only that, but we poured the foundation February 2020. And then as we were, I think, getting to window stage is when the whole world shut down. And so.
Oh, February.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Contractors are like, not showing up for months.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to.
Yeah.
Just get to not.
And it was just so unknown. Like,
we'd come
so
by
many unknowns.
every day, just drive by. And for like a month, there wouldn't be a single person at the house.
And then everything's delayed now on supply chain.
Gosh. I mean, thankfully, like.
So you're documenting
Oh yeah,
that?
the whole journey. In May, we actually sold the house that we were living in, and we had this thought that, well, the builders told us that the house was going to be done at the end of the summer, and so we ended up moving in with my parents for that time, thinking, okay, this is only for like 6 to 12 weeks, not that bad. It's just the summer, and that was a fateful error in timing judgment, but. It ended up being 7 months that we all lived together, because the house didn't finish until December of 2020. But yeah, I was just sharing all of that, ups and downs. Since we had that big move, I ended up shutting the sign shop down for the first time ever. It's like, we have to get through this move. I'm now at my parents'. My parents were so gracious to actually let me take over their house and run the shop out of there. I think I reopened in the fall, and they are saints. I literally cannot believe that they allowed that to happen, because I took over the whole thing. There were signs. They had, a staircase with the spindles. There's signs sticking out of there as I'm like producing them.
It's like a dominoes, all throughout the floor. There's like just signs, like standing
Signs
up.
everywhere.
Then when it's shipping day, boxes all over the downstairs. I did have a team member at that time, and so she would come over to their house and work. And it's a really sweet memory, but also at the same time, I burned myself out. Like, we were doing so many signs. It was the busiest, fall and Christmas was always the busiest time of year for business. So we were doing that. We were building the house, hitting all those obstacles. That was stressful. We had decided to homeschool Graham that year, just with all the unknowns with, was school even going to be open? I don't know. So let's control this a little bit more. And it just was a super stressful season. So when we moved in December, I had already shut down for like the holiday season. I always would like to spend December not killing myself for orders. And so I'd already shut down, got into the house, and was like, okay, you know what? I just really need a breather here because this is not sustainable anymore. We are at this point with the business of either needing to hire a team and I step back from being the sole, manufacturer, or change the business and get it back to a more small boutique place. I never felt the peace to grow it any further. I'm also kind of I feel like in that realm, a control freak, like having to think about training a new people to take on this role. I was so meticulous with every single step of it that I just couldn't imagine making that leap. And so we just kind of sat on it for a little while. And as we moved into the house, since I had been sharing the whole building process, everybody was so excited to like, oh my gosh, you're finally in, that it took 2 years for you guys to get into this thing. Like, we want to see the finished product,
Also, Instagram was starting to reward you for your stories.
Yeah.
And they were like promoting, her content to the world.
Not at that point. That was the next year.
That was not that point. That was the next year, as I was saying.
No, just had that community. And so I started just kind of throwing our once again, we moved into a house that was totally different than the last one. So we sold everything. And this time we did have a little bit more of a budget to furnish the new house. And so just, started kind of sharing it and snapping pictures.
The stage.
Yeah, like just styling, like, all right, hey guys, I
colors.
put together the living room today. Here's kind of what I did. And the really cool thing about the sign business and working with influencers on the business side was that I kind of feel like it was like a design internship almost for me, because they would put my signs in their homes. I'd watch them with that whole process and kind of take, I didn't know it at the time that I was taking mental notes on it, but when I got to that side of being more of the home decor influencer, I kind of had this time to study and learn about what that kind of was. And it wasn't that I was ever thinking, oh, we're going to move into this house and that's what I'm going to do.
I'm going to be a home decor influencer.
Yeah, I
wasn't a goal or objective.
Was not on the bingo card.
You were just doing
I just was like,
and it resonated with people.
I am in this off period of time. I don't want to just totally neglect all these people that, I've built a connection with. And so I was like, well, let's just kind of start sharing that and see what happens until I decide to open the sign shop again, because that was always the goal.
And so it turns out you're really good at decor and really good at design.
Yes,
Exactly right.
I'd always had this interiors passion. In college, I probably would have gone to school, I would have studied interior design, but it didn't work with the volleyball schedule. And so I ended up, I wish, well.
Priorities.
Yeah, volleyball, always a priority. I ended up graduating with psychology, which I didn't do anything with except to try and understand why our son would only eat chicken nuggets. That was about the extent of
the bane of every parent's existence.
I still haven't figured it out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
it was crazy though, because she started getting these outreaches from brands
other
that
businesses.
are seeing the impact of her content, and they're just like, hey, can we send you XYZ products and we'll pay you XYZ amount of money
And I'm
to
what?
to share it on your page. And it's like we were going back to remembering just a couple of years earlier, she was doing this with these influencers, and now it's like the tides have turned, and she's the one who's being asked and with compensation. And so I'm sitting at home, I'm watching her and this other gal, and they're like busting their butts to get an orders produced. And it's just a madhouse. And our home is filled with all these signs. And in the garage, our workshop is filled with all these signs. And they're just working their tails off. And so I'm like doing the math. I'm like, okay, once all these orders ship out, here's going to be the revenue we get from it. And here's, all the net. And wow, that's not that much. And wait a minute. Okay, so then this one brand reaches out and offers this. And that number is equal to that number. It's one post versus like 12 hours of hard labor. And I was like, hey, babe, we need to talk about this. And you're just burning yourself out over here. And for the same amount of money, you could do what I think, you also love to do, which is interior decorating, is, kind of refreshing the home, is, she's not a shopper, but she's amazing at like the refreshing moment.
Mm-hmm.
And look, there's real opportunity to grow financially and as a platform in this.
And it's resonating with people.
Totally.
People like it.
And so she was just like, okay, we maybe need to reconsider this.
So what point did it become like, this is a thing? Like, was this is recent?
Yeah. I would
like.
say, I'm trying to remember what my
2021?
first like paid collaboration was. I honestly can't remember. But I also remember during the home building process, since I had seen other influencers work with brands and, different things like that, we kind of came up with this idea. We were like, I wonder if we could pitch different companies in the, that we're going to be using their products anyways in our home. Wonder if we could pitch some kind of exchange of
Getting a
deal to create content, once the house is done and whatnot. And so we were able to, and at that time I only had 12,000 followers, 20,000. I mean, it was still pretty small at that point. And so we just started sending out emails, media kit with kind of a proposal of what we would do. And the brands were like, yeah. So we got a partner.
It's amazing when you ask.
They just,
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Which-
to ask.
People often think, well, that would never happen. It's like, but have you asked?
Have you
tried?
The worst they can do is
That's right.
know what you were
And
saying.
thankfully, he's worked with the power of no, and he's already gotten past that.
He's like, it's feeding
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Say it again.
So yeah, we got windows, tile, flooring. Not all free, but definitely at a
Discounted.
yes, which was such a blessing with the home building process.
So one of the things I love about your story is I think social media and putting yourself out there really paralyzes people. I think it's a lot of people that, like I was talking with a friend who's an artist over the weekend, and she's it just feels weird putting myself out there and doing that. I'm like, but you're so good at it, and you're like, you have this talent. There's literally just an element of just showing up and just being willing. And the other thing is like with what you just described, you weren't like trying to craft this perfect post or sales pitch, or you were just sharing your journey and sharing your story, and it was authentic. It was real. It was what you were doing. It was the ups and downs. And I think so much of like even building a brand is just inviting people behind the scenes, inviting people, documenting instead of creating. So, I think I hope it encourages people to hear it. There's just an element of like you gotta just do it, and don't overthink it, and don't try to.
Even if you see the stats, there's a there's a stat that shows that more people have a fear of public speaking than they do have a fear of death, and it's a pretty large population, and the reason they do is because of the fear of man, right? It's just it ultimately comes down to this identity crisis. And not wanting to mess up in speaking, or not wanting to mess up or look a certain way. And most of those people are introverted, so you wouldn't think that they have a care about what they look like, sound like, act like. But it's what draws introversion in so many people is that fear, right? And so we talked about earlier, it's amazing how once you get past that fear of going like, I have to please somebody, or I have to say this the right way, like even just sitting here, it's just there's a difference in having a conversation and being honest and real versus the fear of trying to say it the right way and communicate it, that's going to best, get you in a position for betterment. And it was just so cool because you're exactly right. The way that, she got to communicate was like she got to share her spiritual life, her life of a health journey that, that we've been working through for the past 2-3 years, and that she's finally, she's healed from a condition, and she brought her people along that journey, and it was like it was hard. It was really hard. There's real things in this that's not fun to talk about, especially when you're dealing with it. But you get to see that when people get brought into the middle of a testimony, and you don't know what the outcome's going to be, you have faith, and that's about it. You don't have the outcome yet. You don't have the breakthrough. And so, we got to just see, like, I got to watch her, in tears most nights, waiting for breakthrough to come, and then open herself up in tears and share this journey. This is hard. It's not fun. And faith doesn't mean it's going to be fun all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that's why it's called faith. You're hoping for something coming, and working to have joy in the middle of it, working to worship in the middle of it. And that's been one of the coolest things for me, is like seeing these, you know, most people put up the facade. It's what I want you to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, her story's always been like, I'm going to show you what's, you know, without giving away so much of herself, without you know.
Yeah, that's a delicate balance of sharing everything, but not everything, you know?
Yeah.
My philosophy, I guess, on it is, if you're sitting down at coffee with me, you're going to get exactly the same thing that you're going to get if I'm holding a phone in front of my face and sharing something with you over the internet. And it's funny because I've met a lot of, you know, influencers now being in this realm. I've gone to a couple different conferences, meet and greet type things. And it's actually shocking the amount of people that you would think are so extroverted, so friendly. You connect with them through the screen, but then you meet them in person and you're like, oh, wow, you are totally different than I thought you were going to be.
It's a persona.
Yeah. And I never, ever, ever want anybody who would meet me to ever feel like that, because that's just not authentic. And when you're creating a community and you're creating that connection, it's got to be about that. Otherwise, like, the world doesn't need any more fake. The world needs realness. They need to know that they're not alone, that what they're going through isn't just something that is affecting them, that somebody else has gone through that at a certain point. And so it's not hard for me to share the hard, because I know at the end of the day, somebody is benefiting from it. Somebody can see my testimony and be encouraged in the place that they're at.
And I think you can tell that that's your
Yeah.
motive. I think that's why people have responded to it. I think that's why it grew so
Yeah.
quickly. That's incredible.
It's been a fun ride. Like I said, did not grow up in a family thinking this way. There's even times that my family's like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Our
Putting it all out there.
accountant, who's her family's accountant for years, still thinks that she makes birdhouses
Yeah, that's true.
as the little bird.
I love that. Okay, and so then you have the studio. Is it your house?
Yep.
You
house.
rent out your actual
Yeah,
house.
we live there.
Yeah.
It's not a separate
Nope.
house.
So you're going to notice a theme here. We had a word in our spirit. So every time we've made some
going
sort
back
of
to the church.
every time we've made some sort of a move from our marriage to businesses, it always began with a word. And so there was a day that we go to Mercy Culture here in Fort Worth, and we were in the middle of worship, and just like lost in the presence of the Lord, and I just, up in my spirit, same way as I've heard it before, pay off your debt. And it wasn't this rebuke as much as it was this like invitation. And, you know, historically I wouldn't have said we had any sort of unnecessary debt. The American debt, you know, we have house, cars, credit card. And, but it was like this invitation to pay off our debt, a weight that I didn't even really know I was carrying. And so I was like, okay, all right, yes, Lord, but you got to do it, because I don't know how we're going to do it. You know, I mean, it seems like soon. And so we got in the car, shared it with her, and she goes, I heard the same word. It's just crazy. It's amazing how when you have a word and you confirm it with your spouse or your partner, whoever you're doing this with, and there's not opposition to it. It's a confirmation. And so we just both prayed on it. Lord, if you want to do this, you got to do it.
We had no
idea.
No idea.
We didn't have any new opportunity.
Yeah.
And we were kind of maxed out with our payments. And so about 2 weeks later, a dear friend of mine who's a film producer, he goes to Mercy Culture as well. He called us up. He called me up, and he was like, "Hey, I've got a film or a commercial I'm shooting for a pretty big company, and we're doing like an interior. We're doing a shoot in the home. Can we just use your home to shoot it? Our home's kind of like, you know, Scandinavian, mid-century modern, like, you know, tall ceilings, natural light. And I was like, of course, you can absolutely do that. He's like, great. Here's the location budget for the day. And I was like, oh, no. You're not going to pay me. Just absolutely, come use it. He goes, no, this is the client's budget. Just take it. I was like, fair enough. Okay. The next day, very high-end boutique rug company sends Jennie a message on Instagram. They followed her journey of the house build.
Mm-hmm.
Very next day, hey, we're shooting our fall catalog, and we want to use your home to shoot our rugs in. Can we do that? Here's our location budget for the day. And she was just
Wow.
like,
What the?
what is
What is
this?
Yeah.
And so I called back my buddy, and I was like, hey, is this like a thing? Do you rent homes to shoot in? And he's like, well, I mean, I usually shoot in either my own home or my friends' homes. But yeah, I shoot in homes a lot. And I was like, okay, I assume companies do it, like agencies do it too. And he's like, yeah, of course. Like, okay, where's like the book? Like, where do they find these homes? There's got to be a book somewhere. And he was like, I'm not familiar with one. But I'm like, okay, you think about like Hollywood, you know, they don't always build sets when they're filming
Yeah.
in a home.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just use a home. And the McAllister home in Home Alone is
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
iconic home that's actually a home. And so I'm like, you know, surely there's like a book that agencies use where there's like homes available. And he's like, I have no idea. So then I'm thinking there's got to be some sort of like an Airbnb style, like peer-to-peer network. So I just typed it in, like peer-to-peer home studio rental. And Hot Pup's this company called Peerspace. And that's exactly what they do. They had, as far as I could tell, they had just started. And so, you know, they didn't have a big portfolio of homes. And there was like nothing in DFW.
Mm-hmm.
And there was certainly nothing in Argyle. And so listed our home there. And then just inquiries started coming in. And people were wanting to book our home. And it's like what you would make an Airbnb in one day or one night usage, you make in 2 hours on Peerspace.
Wow.
And it's professionals who are signing a lease agreement. And
Yeah.
there's liability, there's corporate liability. And
They're not staying
staying
there.
Yeah,
the
you're not
night.
changing the
Yeah.
sheets, the
Nobody's
towels,
getting
the
wasted and like
dishes.
thrown up on the
Yeah.
couches, you know, like nobody's
Yeah.
stealing your Wii. Like it's just a different clientele.
Yeah.
And so it just starts getting booked. So then, you know, all we know how to do is build brands. So I was like, okay, this can't just be
Let's make
this
a brand.
can't just be like a thing, you know, like a Peerspace thing. We got to build a brand out of it. So we had this name Stock and Seed, you know, because we were starting to you know raise up livestock on the farm, and we have this vision of kind of being able to be a place where we plant, we grow, we harvest, and we have livestock, and you know these two come together in Stock and Seed. And so we started this brand out of our home called Stock and Seed. The weirdest thing is like, when people come over, do we say like, hey, come over to Stock and Seed? Like this is our home still,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's got a business entity to it, but it's also our home.
Yeah.
And so we built this brand, started doing the same thing, reaching out to local photographers, agencies, you know. And over the past 2.5 years, we've had like 400 and some odd bookings at the home. And it's been like, we'll get calls that are like, hey, I saw your home in a commercial. We're like, where?
Wow.
What was it for? You know, I have no idea. We have no idea who's filming in our home.
So what do you do? Okay, I love the idea of this. I love the idea of it. You got this beautiful home, but like I'm looking at my house and my kids are just tornadoes. What do you do with your kids' stuff?
I always
There's a
love this
shift.
question. That's
Yes.
always the next. Yeah.
Because I'm like, I can't
Yes.
like
Yeah.
my cleaning lady is at my house today,
Yes.
and I guarantee you by like 8 o'clock
Oh, yeah.
tonight, my
Back to where
house
it was.
is gonna have toys
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
everywhere.
Yes.
I mean, it definitely was an adjustment on the front end.
Yeah, because you're like
We're paying the
staying-
Yeah, but we're paying the kids. They're our employees. No, but you know, kind of in the design of the home, we really wanted to maximize all of the space. We didn't want to have any wasted space, but we also wanted to set up, you know, different storage mechanisms because we don't thrive well when there's stuff everywhere. I mean, especially him. I
Neither. I'm
can
constantly stressed out.
Yeah.
Apparently,
I can handle it a little bit more, but he definitely cannot.
I walk in, it's like there's like 3 dishes, and I'm like, okay, I have to get these off and cleaned up.
so you have all these secret storage.
For the most part, we're like, okay, someone's coming, dump it in real fast and go.
Well, the beauty too is like living on land. You know, it's funny. We had a couple of years before this. We were like, I walked into the house, and there's like toys everywhere. Walked into the theater room or the media room where they played. There's like toys everywhere, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, none of these have been played with. They've just all been brought out.
Or it's all the like little pieces that go
And
everywhere.
so, like, what's going to happen? Like, here goes Dad after bedtime cleaning up everything because I don't care how many times you tell a kid to clean up, it's never clean.
No.
And so I told Jenny, I'm like, hey, experiment. I'm going to throw away like 90% of this crap, and we're going to see how they react. Guess what? They had no idea. They had no idea. Woke
And
up the
actually,
next
they
morning,
played better because
did.
there were less options.
It's amazing.
I
When
believe
there's
it.
order, everybody works better. And so we moved into the house with, I don't know, each of the kids maybe had like 10 toys that they brought with them. And we've kind of
Go play with the donkeys.
yeah, literally. So we're like, get outside, go
Yeah.
run in the trees, go play basketball, go do something. And when it's the cool months, they do. And so it was just, we had to set a new discipline though, because there's still every opportunity for mess of all kinds, not just toys.
Well, and then when we're inviting clients into the home, it's not just, okay, make sure everything's put away. It's, all right, we got to vacuum. We got to wipe things down. Everything needs to be very, very clean. And so there was an adjustment period, but it also got us into this really cool rhythm of not letting the house go to a point that now I'm going to spend 2 hours before a client comes getting this all ready. Now it's, I don't know, 30 minutes. Just let's make sure beds are made. Everything's just kind of right how we like it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It was kind of
And
a
so
testing
now-
period. Like, we want to do this over and over. We want to like buy properties and either
do more
have
of
homes,
them.
build something, tiny homes, like more studio style.
Specifically ones that we aren't living in so that
Yes.
it's not,
Yeah, a little easier.
But it's been
Oh,
been so good for our kids because they've learned ownership of their items and putting things away.
It's time to pick
And
it
it's
up.
something that I'm sure when they're older, they'll be like, well, our parents were renting out the house all the time. We always had to clean up. But it's like, yeah, but now you do it. And it's a good habit to have.
And one thing we always talk about is like, if you have an asset, whether it's home, time, maximize it. I think there's so many people that sit on their home and they call it an asset, and it's like, it's a hopeful asset. Hopefully the market grows and with interest and everything that you're going to at least make your money back, but it's not a guaranteed asset. And so, could you maximize it? Could you open it up for studio use or Airbnb when you're gone or whatever it might be? And if you have time, like, we just kind of find ourselves, like I told you earlier, like we kind of find ourselves sometimes we're like, okay, I got a little bit of time on my hands. Like, could I utilize that time? Or is it time to rest, and to sit back for a minute?
That's a good segue. My question was going to be to take us into how do you balance it all? The relationship, the kids, juggling these things. Because it's clearly each of you have a unique gift, the ability to build brands and to design spaces that are beautiful and things that are beautiful that make people, you create things that draw people in. But it also the difference between an owner and just someone who works at the company is also you're always on. You're always thinking about it. I literally woke up at like 2:30 last night because my brain just started going, and I was like, fall back asleep because you're always thinking about it. But just give me some, invite me into how you guys stay healthy as individuals, as a family, as a couple, as you're juggling all these things that you're responsible for, that you're owning. That you're dreaming the next thing. Give me some of your rhythms or philosophies or habits.
I mean, I think first and foremost, the most important thing for us to be able to steward all of this well is to have our own personal daily encounter with the Lord. Because if we're starting to operate and do things just out of what I think is great and la 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 la, gonna burn out every single time, and it's gonna be overwhelming. So for both of us, we really try to start our day. We're not perfect at it, but most days we start, in worship and just in the Word and just hearing what God has for us that day.
early in the morning.
Earlier,
After the kids
probably,
go to school or something.
earlier right now, just because we're
Is this to get together or
individually. We like to come together at the end of the day with the kids and do, kind of a family encounter moment. But starting our days off on that foot definitely gives us just the roadmap for the day, so that we can balance everything. If we're not prioritizing that, then it just all really falls apart. And so, that's how we start.
Yeah, before we had Graham, I had a friend who we got lots of unsolicited opinions on how to raise kids from people that we didn't necessarily want their opinions, but there was a few that I wanted to solicit their opinion and their perspective. And so there was one friend in particular, I came to him and I just said, hey, any advice, as I'm getting into this? And he goes, my one word I would give you is get on the ground with your kids. And that was a huge moment for me, because it was like, okay, not just physically, but emotionally, get on their level. Like when you get home, you turn dad hat on. You put dad hat on. You are no longer, I don't care if you think you're amazing or if your day was a pile of poop, like you are dad now and you are husband now. And so for the first part of being a dad, is like, I don't care what I was carrying from work. I would use the time in the car to worship, to unwind, to just let my thoughts settle, everything settle. I pull up to the house and I just, okay, I'm dad now. And come in the house and that's all I was. And it's like, just put the phone away, put all the things, all the distractions away. And definitely not perfect at that. And there are seasons where that is easier than it is some other seasons. But that was one, huge word that it's like I can visualize what that looks like to get on the ground.
There's a hard stop.
Yes.
There's a hard stop and a hard start.
Yes. And it was like, I was also raised in a home. I was fortunate enough where my dad did the same thing. He when he's home, he's home. That's it. And people called. Too bad. I'm not that important. You can get to me tomorrow. So it was a huge piece. It was like learning, I'm just not that important. I'm really not, and so the world can keep going without me and it'll be okay.
Our most important ministry is our home and our kids.
We got to steward our family first.
He's always done such an amazing job at that. We couldn't do all of these things if we weren't a great partnership and if he didn't have that level of, turning it off and only being dad when he comes home.
We try to steward our weekends, where it's almost fully a Sabbath weekend, where we are, we're together as a family, we're offline, we're not working, we're not building, we're not creating, we're not dreaming. It's okay. I'm prone to dreaming.
Yeah.
So
it is hard. It is hard to turn it off.
Sometimes it's hard.
It's so hard. It's one of the hardest things, and it's like, and if it's hard, that means you're doing something in the right direction to steward that in the best possible way. So, but I mean, as an entrepreneur and a creative, yes, resting. I think that's probably one of the greatest challenges we face is the idea of rest, because we're on always, and even being a dad, being a husband, it's like there are times where you go, okay, hey, I just need to sit. I just need to sit for a little bit. And just that's why I love getting those times in the morning with the Lord where it's just like, all right, I'm just gonna worship. I'm just gonna sit here in quiet and just pray and just be still. And it's amazing, God moves in the whisper. He shows up in the whirlwind too, but he really shows up in the whisper. And so we want to take that time to. It blesses us. When we bless him, it blesses us. It's hard.
So that keeps you going. That's kind of the cornerstone, the keystone habit, so to speak.
For sure.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
And then just communication too.
Yeah.
It's so easy to run alone, to feel like you're two lone wolves, running in your different directions, and then
passing
sheets, and then come together like the occasional date night and share and be like, oh my gosh, I have so much to tell you. And then it's like, well, hang on, you did what? You decided what without me? Why? It's for the better of all of us,
I'm renting out our house.
I didn't tell you, but you have to get out of the house every day. You're gonna love it. Yeah, and there are those moments, and they are real.
Yeah. But I think we're both so passionate about what the other is doing that it's like, okay, what'd you do today? No, what'd you do today? It's easy.
And being each other's cheerleaders.
Yeah, it's easy to stay connected with each other that way. And that's been a really big blessing for us.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I have one more question, then we'll start to wrap
Okay.
it up. We've gone
Yeah.
long.
It's been like
but
two
you
or
have,
3 hours now, right?
But you guys, I mean, you guys have such an amazing story. Just okay, real quick, just building a brand. You know, he came to you with the original idea, and you're like, I know how to get it to people, and you have built these brands that are big, that people love, that resonate, that are authentic. You've tapped into these things. Like, how do you do that? Like, if you were, and there's an art to it. There's an art. There's a creative. It feels very fluffy and tangible. If you were to like make it like more tactical,
Yeah.
where would you start? Someone has an idea, and they want it to be something that people love. Like, where does that begin?
I mean, it starts with observation. I think one of the lost arts as humans, like when we get into business, it's almost like we have to start with something tangible. Like, an investor wants to see data. Show me the data. It's like, that's good. It's really good. And I want to look at the data too. But I also just want to observe, as a creative, I want to just stop and just observe patterns, behaviors. And, it's amazing how much as a creative, an effective creative is really an effective psychologist. You're understanding how people behave. How do I behave? I'm a consumer. I'm a user. I'm an end user. How do I behave? And asking those right questions, just like with Modern Huntsman, like going back to my friends and being like, hey, you don't happen to hunt, do you? Well, why do you hunt? This is fascinating, because tell me why that appeals to you. And I think that a lot of times we lose perspective because we look at data so tight. Data tells one piece of the story. It shows macro momentum, but it doesn't give you the heart behind it. The amount of hunters declined 3% this year over year. So there must be something happening in the decline of hunting. Well, what is that? Is it because of perception? Is it because people are busier? Is it because of the economy? Is it because of politics? Why? And so a lot of being an effective communicator, creative, for me, it just kind of begins with asking those questions and knocking on doors and asking people around you. Just showing up into coffee shops and be like, hey, can I bug you for a minute? Like, do you happen to hunt? do you happen to drink whiskey? Could you tell me about that? Like, why don't you? You drink vodka or tequila. Why don't you drink whiskey? Oh, that's amazing to know that now. Thank you for that information. And then moving into the data side. And so, I mean, that's one of the things that, we take with every brand we create is then I want to look at, okay, where is macro economy moving towards? Where, why is there is a rise happening in consumers drinking whiskey, and that is actually astounding. 60% of the bourbon consumer is millennial and Gen Z. Blew me away. I thought it would have been the old guard, sitting around smoking cigars, drinking whiskey, but it's the young pups who are drinking whiskey, and so that's fantastic to know that. Now I understand a gap in the market, because there are a few brands who are building themselves for that generation, understanding millennial and Gen Z, understanding and empathizing with them and creating brands for them. They might create campaigns for them. They might have ads that look like they understand, that generation, but the brand doesn't resonate empathy with them. And so, great, there's the opportunity. Now, let's create the empathy. Let's find that common ground that we can create. So that's my perspective.
Yeah. I would say on my side of the business entrepreneurial journey, it's a little bit harder to find, because I feel like so much of it has just been, luck's not really the right word. Favor is a better word for it. I didn't set out with this original intention for this, and that's just kind of how it's gone. But the observation piece, I think, is so key, because on this influencer side, I wouldn't be doing that if I wasn't observing people along the way in the business. And so we should probably get a little more strategic, I feel like, in the future with just the different opportunities that we have here ahead of us. But I think just not having, going back to that fear piece, just not having the fear to swing far, just go for whatever goal it is. I like to say all the time, like just taking that leap of faith. Like you don't know what's going to happen, but you could just go on the greatest ride of your life if you take it. And
I don't remember if this was a true stat or hypothetical, that if a football team were to go for the fourth down on every play as opposed to punting, that their stats would actually improve. That, you know, there was one team.
There's like a high school team, I think, that did that.
that did this philosophy.
Yeah.
And they actually ended up getting like double the amount of yards or something like that, you know. And I believe that as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we punt. You know, we get to the third down, we see obstacles and challenges. You know, we remember that last time we ran on fourth down, we got tackled, and so we don't run on fourth down again. And I think one thing that we've got to learn, that we've been learning, is, you know, punting is resounding in fear. You know, it's just, okay, I got to get the ball as far back as I possibly can to give myself enough room to defend again, you know, so we get into defensive mode. And so it's the challenge of stewarding, you know, when fear rises up, going, I know I might get sacked again on fourth down. I might have to play defense from this position, but I'm not going to let that fear stop me. You know, I'm gonna at least go for fourth.
I'm gonna go
for
it. Staying on the offense.
And so, like, I would say both of those things summarize. So, you know, I think clearly what you guys, the theme in your relationship, the theme in your journeys, is just this: get fear out of the equation, and then also go for it. You know, to have the faith to go for it. And then also like creating the space to hear from God. Like that doesn't happen on accident. You know, you have to create space and margin. You have to ask for it. You have to listen. You have to pray. But I think, man, you have so many good nuggets there. But I think the fear, going for it, and then making that space. So you guys are super, super inspiring.
Come on, you are too. I just learned everything I do from you. So just trying to become more like Jamey Ice.
Not true. Well, we do. There's a lot of similarities here. Like, we need to do a double date. Yeah, well, guys, this was so much fun. Okay, final question. What is next? What is next for the Neathery family?
I'm waiting for a word.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, everything that we've done so far began with a word. And so
obviously
this JoJo is next.
JoJo's our current girl.
JoJo's so fun. You know, we talk about it and dream about it all the time. You know, I think there's something with real estate. I love what you guys are doing on the real estate side. There's something with real estate. I don't know if it's literally realty or if it's something like extending what we're doing with stock and seed. You know, we just have this. There's something about land and property over us. So you know, I think in the future there's going to be that opportunity. But for now, it's like, I mean, we have chased after so many things and come to an impasse where it's like, there's just no peace on this. We want to want this, but there's no peace on it.
Yeah.
And there was no word for it, you know, and so we're trying to build something out of our own strength and condition. And I'm just not strong enough to build this on my own. I really can't do this. So I'm waiting for a word.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have anything else to add to that except, you know, our hands are just open, waiting. And in the meantime, just continuing to do what we've been doing with everything else, and just seeing what comes next. Yeah, just really being
I love
open.
it, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So inspiring and lots of fun.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good stuff.
Congratulations, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Stories with Soul. If you enjoyed the interview and like what you heard, please help us out and share, subscribe, and like anywhere you listen to podcasts. When you share and subscribe, it is insanely helpful and allows us to keep producing new episodes. You can always join us directly in the studio by watching the video version on our website, 6thAveStorytelling.com. Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, an organic marketing company building standout brands on the foundation of story. You're obsessed with your business, and we want to make the world obsessed with it too. Thanks for listening.